Welcome to Scars to Stars, where conversations and personal stories let us know we are not alone. In this show, you will meet authors and speakers from our books and events as they share vulnerable personal stories to spread hope and inspire you through adversities in your own life. The world is a difficult place. You will find like-minded people here with kind hearts and supportive souls. I am your host, Dina Brown Mitchell. I am a suicide survivor and the founder of the Realize Foundation. I am so glad you are here. Let's dig into this meaningful conversation. Hi there, it's Dina at the Realize Foundation, and I have a special guest today, Deborah Weed. Thank you so much for being here, Deborah, and I would love for you to tell our audience more about you.
Thank you, Dina, so much. I really appreciate it. I am the founder of the Self-Worth Initiative, and I'm also working on a full-scale musical called Paisley the Musical, and I have written a lot of books. My main goal is to make a difference and let people know how much they're worth and why.
That's awesome. And tell me the name of it again.
I'm the founder of the Self-Worth Initiative.
That is amazing. How did that come about? I have to hear the story.
Okay, get ready, everybody. Here goes the story. What transpired is that for so long, I had been the director of development for Citibank, 19 branches, and I had also worked on a $26 million pavilion with Disney and Universal Consultants. I was at the top of my game, right? Like a lot of us have been or are. But during that time, something mysterious started to happen where I got tremendously sick, but I didn't know what it was. The pain was horrifying. And I was stuck in bed, it turned out, for 3 years. And I went from doctor to doctor. And one doctor would say, "You have MS." And then the next doctor said, "You have Lou Gehrig's." And then the next doctor said, "It's all in your head." When you have so many doctors saying different things to you, you start to not know what to believe. So going from tremendously successful to bedridden was horrible until I heard about a 1943 pure copper penny that could be worth $1 million. And the reason that it was worth $1 million because it was made by mistake, and it didn't have like the steel that was inside of it. So because I had produced so many shows since I was 16 years old and I was stuck in bed with nothing better to do, the idea that a penny, something almost worthless and something that people wouldn't even, bend over to pick up, could be worth that much, gave me hope. And I was like, you know what? I am going to start to write a book while I'm in bed. And I am going to start to create a musical, because what a brilliant way to show children and their families how much they're worth than through the eyes of a 1943 penny. And the doctors, swinging back to the physical manifestation, the doctors found out that I had a tumor the size of a grapefruit, and it was behind my uterus. And a trigger warning, everybody. I was pretty much bleeding out every day, but they had said it was because maybe of heavy menstruation, so they didn't catch it at the time. My iron was between a 3 and a 6. So, and the doctor who finally found out what had been happening that whole time told me that I should have been dead. And so I had a hysterectomy. And as soon as I had the hysterectomy, I decided to become the founder of the Self-Worth Initiative and to devote my life, the rest of my life, to making sure people knew how much they were worth and why in really dynamic, creative ways.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. That is such a great story. And we have a lot in common. I've been sick for the past year, but we can talk about that later. And I think I had a hysterectomy too, and finally found out for 30 years I had been suffering from endometriosis.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So we have a lot in common. But I love your story about the penny and how you tie that to people's self-worth, because the penny is flawed, and that is why it is worth so much money.
Exactly.
That's
It
amazing.
And actually, that little penny actually saved my life, because during that time period, if we're going to be talking about suicide or anything along those lines, because I felt misunderstood, misdiagnosed, stuck in bed, feeling like I had so much to give the world, but not being able to do it, and the pain was horrific. There were many times I felt like, yeah, I don't understand. I don't know what's going on with my life, and I don't know if I can hang on. But hearing about that penny and rechanneling my efforts to want to make a difference is what essentially saved my life.
That's incredible. So tell me about the play.
Okay, so the play, it seems to me, Dina, that I have a lot of health challenges in my life, and they're mystery challenges. And every time it happens, then something creative comes out of it. Like I have no choice. It's almost like spirit is tapping me on the head saying, you don't have a choice here. We're going to give you something else to do. So I have to go back to the penny for a minute, and say that we did live shows. I created it into a musical, and we did live shows in New York and Florida, and inspired so many families and kids. And then after COVID, it was impossible to bring that forward. And so I had another health challenge, a hard one, kind of like out of the normal range. And what I decided is I needed another protagonist, but I needed a protagonist that would absolutely positively represent what it would feel like if somebody took away their power. And what came to me is a porcupine, because a porcupine has quills, and the quills are supposed to protect the porcupine. So, what if I created a porcupine? Well, I did. I created a porcupine by the name of Paisley, who gives away her quills because she wants to be a fashion designer. But in the animal fashion world, porcupines must use their quills as pins and hand them over to Zavana, who is this couture diva, over the top diva, who demands this. And Paisley keeps on giving away her quills until she's down to her last quill. And it's what happens with her last quill that makes a difference, where she's able to reclaim her power. And I wrote a book called Paisley's Last Quill, and it was primarily targeted to little girls and their families. But here's what happened. A lot of the mothers came back to me and they said, I loved the book. This book meant so much to me too, because I've given my power away. And what I realized was this is much bigger than I even imagined. And so I have been now spending my time developing Paisley the musical, based on the children's book, Paisley's Last Quill. And I want to bring it to adults and have them experience the whole concept of what it looks like and feels like to give away your power, and how we can reclaim it.
I am in awe of your creativity. Like, I thought I was a creative person, but this is amazing. I can't. Wow. And I can see how it's written for children and it would mean so much to other people.
It did. I mean, it really touched my heart when they came back to me and they were like, the book, The Places We Will Go. Some children's books really, really touches our hearts, right?
Mhm.
But ever since I was 16, I produced shows. My mother was a talent agent. and she had a party company. So ever since I was 16, I've been producing things. But this one, Dina, this one is over the top. Like when I went to Wicked, oh gosh, I walked away and I was singing the songs and I like really had all of the emotion of the characters. And it makes me realize that sometimes I can say something as a person and it might land perfectly in somebody's heart. But when you go on a journey with characters and there's magical realism and they touch their heart, your heart in a different way where it's never forgotten. If I'm able to create this to the scale that I want to, then I will have created my opus and hopefully touch like millions of people's lives. That's what the dream is. And I'm doing this without a budget, all heart, and let's see how far I can take it, because with children's productions, I can do this myself. I can do the music, I can do the production, I can produce. But as something of this scale, I'm going to be needing singers, the next Idina Menzel, and producers and finance, people who have the budget to bring this to fruition in the way that I see it, because the costuming and everything is huge.
Yeah, that's incredible. Maybe it's going to be on Broadway.
That's the goal. That is the dream, and that's what I keep on picturing. Because you know what? When I did the musical The Luckiest Penny for kids, at the end of the musical, it was about 2 pennies. Let me just back up.
Yeah.
It was about 2 pennies, and one is Alistair, and Alistair is like English, and he thinks he's better than any other penny in the world, or the 1943 pennies, because he's never been touched, and he's in a plastic case his whole life. But Henry, he's been somebody's lucky penny. He's been on the streets alone. He's been at the bank. He's been in the washing machine. And they're both at an auction, and they're going to find out how much they're worth and why. So that's the premise of the story. And when I created the musical and the kids would watch these 2 pennies, I'd ask them at the end, which one do you think is worth more and why? And little kids would be like, oh, I think Alistair, look, Alistair had so much money. He was worth so much and his perfection. And I'm like, yes, but if you had to stay in your room for the rest of your life with just toys, how would that feel? And then they'd say, no, Henry ends up with somebody who actually loves him. And that's what's worth $1 million to him. And they'll say, oh, but love is so much better. And listening to how young children interpreted the musical and the message, oh my gosh, it brought me so much joy. And watching the parents see their children and see like their unfiltered views is what made so much of a difference. So with this musical that I'm working on, the big over the top one, Paisley the musical, I cannot wait. Like everybody's going to be watching the stage, I'm going to be watching the audience. And I'm hoping that what is said afterwards is going to mean the same thing to me, where people go, I get it. I'm not going to give my clothes away. I understand now. I understand that nobody could have taken away my power. I gave it away.
Wow. I'm blown away by this. I think it's incredible. I think I've said that a few times, but I really do. So this Self-Worth Institute, is that a nonprofit?
The Self-Worth Initiative. It is not a nonprofit. I kind of wanted to do it as a non-for-profit. I thought that would be amazing, to get it out to so many more people. But at the time, I just, because I was doing books, creative things, and I was doing a lot of the productions, that was the goal. But since COVID, because we're not able to get out there in the same way well, maybe now we could, but for so long we couldn't. It's like for people who are creative and maybe have gone through tremendous trauma, it's like we need to be able to pivot and then pivot again and then pivot again until we can use our creativity. Because at least for me, creativity has saved my life so many times. Because Dina, the way that I look I look at it as trauma is kind of like this big boulder inside of us, and it's like huge. And sometimes I try to submerge all the pain, keep it down, keep it hidden, keep it away, and that didn't work. It didn't work. I learned to feel it fully, but I've also learned that creativity is this, it's almost like water. It comes down from the universe, flows through us, and it just kind of smooths that boulder little by little by little. And then if we flush it out into the universe, then we're taking our pain or something that brought us down in a big way, and we're using it to help, pay it forward. And anytime we give, we receive, right? It's like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, that's true. And I also think that what you were talking about with the Penny production and how the kids were talking about the two characters is brilliant because what we say at the Realize Foundation is that we reduce suicide rates through conversations, community, and personal stories. And that's exactly what you're creating. And it if we can get people to talk about it, and the human connection is what saves lives.
I just got goosebumps
Me too.
everywhere. And that is so true. What you are doing to step up with that is absolutely positively huge, because that was the thing I realized, that if I tell children, like, how can you tell a 6-year-old what self worth means? Can you? No, but through the eyes of a Penny, they get it. They understand, and they can come up with their solutions, because then it really goes to their heart. Otherwise, it just stays in the head as something like, and later when they're in life and they're struggling, it's like they can't find their way to holding on.
Yeah. And I think that the fact that they can relate to a character might help them understand their thoughts or understand how to verbalize their thoughts later in life. You know what I mean?
Oh, I do. I know with Paisley, the book, the Paisley's Last Quilt for the little girls, the moms would tell me that their little girls, a couple of them said she slept with the book. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that, each of the characters that I come up with or storylines, it's very intentional. It's not just like, oh, I have this. It's very intentional, because I have a message that I want to get across. And sometimes through imaginative storytelling, somebody can hear it either better than words that can sometimes feel trite when
Hmm.
you're going through something, when you're going through a crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the reason that we publish books with people's stories is because through the 23 years that I was silent about my suicide attempt, if I could have picked up a book and read a story about somebody that had a similar story than me, and I could have actually reached out to that person and had a conversation, I probably would have spoken up sooner. But when you're in a place where you don't think anybody cares or understands, and you don't think it's okay to talk about it, especially as a manager, executive, business owner kind of person, like it just makes you stuff it down even more. And I feel like what we're trying to do and what you're trying to do is for every human on the planet. It doesn't matter how old they are, if they're a girl or a boy, it doesn't matter. It's for all of us because all of us have that inner child or inner adult that has experienced something that they think they can't talk about.
And that is the most excruciating thing of all. It's so funny, because people would call me and they would say, well, how are you? And then I'd have to say it, but then I know that they weren't really paying attention. That kind of stuff is excruciating. So you know what I did, Dina? I told people, please call me and say you care. Just say, I care. That's it. I care, because I care seem more powerful than just like, well, tell me how you're doing, but I'm really not listening. It didn't feel real. So, as a possibility for your listeners, that might be something, you know, And I must say though, during that time, I didn't feel like anybody cared because they had, different doctors telling me different things. After a while, people tune out. And when they tune out and it feels like you no longer have a voice, it is so scary.
Yeah, it's true. And I think sometimes people don't act like they care because they don't really understand. It's not that they don't care. It's just that they don't understand. And I think everybody is so distracted and busy these days. They don't always take the time to listen and understand so that they can care.
So true. It's so true. And it's getting worse and worse and worse, right? It's sort of like, okay, let me listen to it. No, I got to get on my phone and see who likes me. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, we're really getting into that situation. So to have the foundation, to do everything that, I mean, look at how you stepped up. Look at how you stepped up. And I know that it's making such a difference in people's lives. And I know I have made such a difference in people's lives, and I want to keep on going too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our board is having more meetings lately than normal because we're coming up with a campaign for our September event. And when we started the foundation, we did summits, like virtual summits. This was like 2020, 2021. And we did virtual summits where people told stories, and it was very meaningful. I think it was well received. And then at some point after that, we started saying, well, what if we made them into a book instead of a virtual summit? Because towards the end of the pandemic, people are like done with virtual events, at some point.
Right, right.
And so we've been doing the books where they come out in September for Suicide Prevention Month. And now we want to change it and make the books come out in May for Mental Health Awareness Month. And in September, we want to do an event that will always probably be virtual because we have people from all over the world. But it would be like our fundraising event with speakers and more awareness around what we're doing and what message we need to get out in the world. And so we're working on a campaign for that right now, and I have some ideas that I'm presenting on Saturday for our board, and I'm excited to see where this goes because it's really all about how do we care for people? How do we show people that we care? How do we connect with people more? How do we be more kind? It's like all of those things will help someone feel that they matter.
Hi there, it's Dina. If you like our podcast and you're enjoying learning about other people's stories of overcoming adversity, please go over to therealizefoundation.org and support us by donating. We believe that conversations, community, and personal story can change lives and reduce suicide ideation. And we also have a way, if you have a business, you can support us without money out of your pocket. So go on over to realizefoundation.org and look at the donate page, and you can learn how to support us as a business, and also you can donate any amount. Thank you so much.
That is so huge. And I love the question, right? Sometimes, we're always looking for the answers. Sometimes the answer is in the question.
That's true. That is true. It started because one of our board members, she's written in every book. She was there for those first virtual events. She's been involved the whole time. And she always texts people on a holiday, like happy, happy Thanksgiving, whatever it is. She sends it to a lot of people. And she was saying how there's so many people who respond to her surprised that she would take the time to do that and how much it means to people. And that's kind of how this whole started. This whole conversation started a couple weeks ago. And it's like, yeah, well, let's dig into that and find out what we can do that will not only make that person feel cared for, but that something that we can use in a bigger way to create awareness of what we're doing.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I know my husband, when he was the executive public defender, the assistant, he would write notes to all the lawyers every time that they would have like a really good trial or something amazing would happen. And years and years and years, we're talking like more than 10 years later, some of these people kept the notes.
Yeah.
They kept the notes. We don't even know what notes are anymore. But they can, all those things, anything that we can do to show that we care is like absolutely amazing.
That's true. You know, it's funny because my husband and I, we've been married 21 years, and for like 10 years, we were apart a lot because we were both traveling so much. And we would always put Post-it notes on the mirror in the bathroom for each other with a note. And there's one that's up on our mirror right now. It's been there for a few months, and it says, "We will be okay." And it's just a reminder. Like, even if you write it to yourself and you put it on your mirror, it's a reminder that you're going to see every day that will help you remember whatever it is you need to remember. And the other thing I want to say about the mirror thing, I met a lady, she was in Canada. We were in a group together during the pandemic on Zoom, and we got to know each other. And I went to one of her events or retreats she had for some of her clients. And one of the things she had us do was go in your bathroom and look at yourself in the mirror and say, "I promise to take care of you mentally and physically every day."
Aww.
And I couldn't even get through the sentence. I looked in the mirror and I started saying it, and I was just bawling. And I didn't really understand why at the time. But it was because I had been pushing myself for so long and working so much that I couldn't physically say that to myself. And it took me a long time to be able to say it without being emotional. And so I think sometimes we need things like that to help us understand where we are and what we need. And you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And you know what? You might have come up with a brilliant idea. I'm an idea person, so I'm just going to throw this out.
Yeah.
Is that I don't know if, what is that thing? What is the thing? The Guinness World Records.
Mhm.
Maybe you could contact the Guinness World Records and see if you can get all your people to write a Post-it note, an encouraging Post-it note, figure out a place to put it, and have the biggest positive note, thing in the world. And that might get a lot of press and attention.
That's a great idea.
There you go, Dina.
You should be a marketing coach.
Oh, my background is marketing.
Oh, okay.
Why I excel at creativity. That's why I worked with Disney and Universal people, because it's always thinking outside the box. But when you were talking about that, I was thinking, how many people who have gone through something would love to put a little Post-it note, and you could just cover a whole, I don't know how much you could cover with your people.
I could do it started in every city or something. I mean,
exactly.
that's it, but yeah.
Exactly. And just like, because that anything that's visual like that will make a difference. But more importantly, for your listeners and everybody wants to have a say, right?
Mhm.
Everybody wants to participate, not only be the recipient, but feel like their voice or their sentence is being heard or seen.
Yeah, it's true. I think it makes me think of a commercial. I can't remember what commercial it is, but it's like people saying, "I am something."
Yes, I remember
Mhm.
that one too. That kind of thing. But when you were talking about the Post-it notes, I'm like, hey, that's simple,
Yeah.
and profound. When a while back, I had a marriage that didn't work out, and I went home, and it was a long time ago. But what happened was my dad, who's kind of like a Yoda dad, like
Mhm.
unbelievable. I was like, Dad, I keep on going in front of the mirror saying, oh, I'm beautiful, I'm this, I'm that. And I couldn't do it. Every time that I tried to say something positive, I'd feel like I was going to throw up, and I felt like a liar. That's how it
Mhm.
felt inside. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, Dad, what do I do with this? And he's like, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to spend a week and do the positive thinking and think as much as you can. And the next week, I want you to go out and I want you to get your hair done. And then I want you to buy a dress and I want you to go out to dinner. And then you tell me at the end of the week which you feel better. So I tried the first week and I still had that thing in my stomach. It's like, oh, this is so hard. I'm not believing it. The second week, I did what he said, even though I didn't feel like it. I absolutely did not feel like the last thing I wanted to do was get my hair done and buy a dress and do all that stuff. As it turned out, I learned a lot because in that second week, I realized that trying to get your brain, trying to like override what's happening chemically in your body is near impossible. But taking action by doing something and actually looking in the mirror and going, oh, I look a little bit better. I started to have the feel good chemicals, which actually started to help. And so many times when somebody's really sad or they're having a hard time getting through something, we want to use thinking to override thinking. Think about that. You want to use thinking to override thinking. And what you really need to do is somehow create new chemicals in the body, which will create a different feeling, which will create a different outcome.
That is true. And it's true, like when you're not feeling well and you don't fix your hair or put makeup on or like just wear something comfortable, it's other people notice because like I've been sick a lot in the last year and there's many days where I'm just want to be comfortable and I don't get dressed or put makeup on or brush my hair. And the days that I do get up and brush my hair and do that, my husband's like, your hair looks really pretty today. And then that makes you feel better because you know what I mean? So sometimes it's what other people notice that help you feel better for yourself.
That's true. I don't even know why sometimes that works. First of all, my heart goes out to you. You know, the fact that you're going through whatever you're going through, and still showing up. But don't you think, Dina, don't you think by showing up and using your creative powers that somehow is a counterbalance for what's happening physically?
Yes. Yes. I do.
I do too. I think that some, I do know what it feels like to feel like, oh, I've seen enough of life. Enough already. I'm suffering. I'm suffering and I want to get out of the pain. But the other thing that I've noticed is, and a girlfriend told me this, and I love this. At one difficult point in my life, she said, this is the middle of the chapter or your book. You know, it's we don't know the twists and turns, and even when we think we know, I have been wrong so many times. There's I think that sometimes people like you and we go through something so difficult and wonder what the heck is going on. I had wanted to do good. What is this? And yet sometimes it's because of what we go through, we become a master or better at really understanding somebody profoundly. And therefore, we're on mission, ironically.
It's true. I think sometimes those things that happen to us can be really great and they turn into a celebrity type status and getting a lot of different things, whether you're speaking or you're in a movie or whatever it is. But I think that the what you're talking about and the things that are hard that we all go through are what gives us the I I can probably tell better with a story. So when my friend and colleague died in 2018 to suicide, I felt like I was devastated because I'd been trying to have lunch with him. I knew he was going through a hard time, and I didn't get the chance to have a conversation with him. And that just felt like was the worst thing ever. And when I finally got to the point where I was ready to speak up and I was really understanding what God was calling me to do, there was a song I listened to a million times called it's by I Am They, and it's called Scars. And it's talking about our scars and Jesus's scars and what he did for us. And whether you believe in God or not, it spoke to me. And I got a tattoo on my arm that said thankful for the scars
Oh,
because
wow.
because in my mind that was a reminder to me why I was doing what I was doing. And it was a reminder that I needed to keep going, like you said. And I think that sometimes there are things that are so profound to us that we need to have a way to remind ourselves of that moment and that decision moving forward. And this could be for you personally, it could be for something that you're trying to do in the world, but especially like as somebody who's been suicidal, if you can hang on to something that's good, like what I have with the Realize Foundation, it doesn't give me that out anymore because now I'm responsible for this. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain, but I think it's that thing in you that you were put on earth for, like you and your creativity and helping others, and how we use that throughout our life to become the person we're supposed to be. It might not be the person we saw ourselves coming, that we were going to be that person. It might be something totally different than we ever wanted or thought. But once you find that thing, it drives you in a way that nothing else matters.
That is so, at least in my life, that is so true. And I guess the question becomes, how does somebody hang on when they don't know what they're supposed to do, where they don't have the counterbalance yet? Maybe it's still in them, but they don't have it yet. And I guess, it's like, I guess, and that's why you're there to just say, with everything you're doing, everything you're doing is to say, I care profoundly. And I know, and I've been there. And it's sort of like every person is a reflection of you. And every person you save, yourself saving, that a quill for yourself.
I love that. But I do think, to your question, between the time of my suicide attempt and the time when my friend died and I really got this purpose in my life, there were a lot of hard times. I don't think I was ever really suicidal again, but I was depressed a lot. And I had a lot of anxiety, and I always felt like I wasn't good enough, or I needed to prove myself. And I think that during those times, I worked a lot. And I think that having responsibility in jobs or in my business is what kept me moving forward. Because if I didn't have any responsibility, then what was I there for? So in my mind, that's what kept me going. Might be different for other people.
Yeah, and the creativity, like, hearing about the penny or thinking about the porcupine, or, that kind of creativity is childlike. And that childlike wonder every single time has been like when I was in corporate, even though I achieved the top of my game at a very, very young age, I never smiled. I never smiled. Now I smile all the time. But at that time, it was like I had a part to play. I didn't know it. I thought, hey, look at how far I've gotten up the ladder, only to fall down. I thought really far, but then like I'll talk with my husband every once in a while, and there'll be this like yearning in me. It's like, oh, yes, but I wanted to touch a million lives. And he's like, don't you understand? You already have, but it's not the way you think. When you touch one person, that person has a universe of 100 people. That person has a universe of 10 people. That person has a universe of, and every time we make that difference, we don't even know the ramifications and how many people, like that child might go home and touch the mom's life, who then goes touch the grandparents' life. And so
Yeah.
we just have no idea. And it does keep you going to think that we can pay it forward when we move out of it, because we profoundly understand the next person.
Yeah.
I think I'd much rather be there than be shallow or bitter. Although
Yeah.
I was bitter though, so I can't say, like there was a time period where I have to claim that and go, wow, I was really angry about feeling so stuck.
But you learned from it and you grew from it.
It gave me Paisley, because I truly believe that we don't get stuck because of a lack of because of fear. A lot of people say you get stuck because of fear. I don't think that's it at all. I think we get stuck because we've given away our power quill by quill. And that's why I'm so hot on the Paisley the musical and bringing it to fruition, because I really want to exemplify the fact that nobody, once again, nobody can and I've learned this the hard way over and over again. Nobody can take the power away from us. We have to willingly say, here, you want it? Here, I don't feel so great about myself today. You want it?
Yeah.
Will this make you love me or prove that I'm better? Or you have more power than me, so who am I to think that I could do that?
Mm-hmm. That's so true. So true. And going back to what you say, touching a million lives, and you don't know how many people you've touched. When we published our first book, our first Scars to Stars book, there were people that were ordering 12 or 20 books
Oh,
and donating them to
oh,
libraries
oh,
and jails and homeless shelters.
oh my, are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, that's so
And
beautiful.
then I would get a text from my mom who said, so and so bought the book and finished reading it and said it was so great. And then she gave it to this other person. And so in our second, third, and fourth book, we have a page on the front that says, if if you've read this or you don't want to keep it, then give it to somebody that needs it. And it has a place where people can write their names so they can see how many people have read it or something. And so there's all kinds of ways we've come up with to get it to more people, but we have no way to track how many people, like you said, have seen it. And it's crazy. And we've gotten royalties through Amazon, like from a lot of different countries, and we get a lot from Japan. And I'm like, how are people in Japan finding our book? And is somebody translating it, or like, is it just in English and they're reading it? Like, I don't know. There's so many questions I have about who we've reached in the world.
Well, and it sounds like, you know what, when you had that tattoo put there, right? And you had the intention and you went to God and you just had an open heart. I think that that intention is so powerful that, you know, it's coming through you, and you're obviously an angel on earth, and I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
And I'm sorry that you're hurting now. I can see in your eyes that it's like you're here for us. And oh boy, do I understand that, because that's often how I feel. I still go through a lot of chronic pain, and sometimes I'm like, what are you doing, Deborah? Oh my gosh.
I think I just get emotional when I talk about this, so I end up crying on videos all the time. But it's just because there's too many people in the world that don't think they matter, and we have to change it.
We are. When I did the self-worth initiative, I realized that there's two things that people get confused about. Self-esteem is like, I believe in myself because I did that really cool thing. But self-worth, it's a different definition. It's what we think we're worth and what we say we're worth. And I remember thinking that I was as worthless as that penny that nobody would grab. And it was made by mistake, and that's why it's worth so much. And to think that now I really am getting a handle of how much I'm worth. I mean, seriously, in my gut. And you're right. If we can mirror that, or if we can share that with enough people, and I'm touched that you care that much because I care that much too.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad we got to have this conversation, and I hope lots of people listen to this episode and get a lot out of it, because I think that, storytelling always gets messages across better than just trying to say what it is. And I think that the stories you have written and the plays you've come up with are really impactful.
Oh, thank you so much. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you joined us for this conversation. My wish is that you found comfort and hope in your own unique situation. If you resonated with our message, please head over to therealizefoundation.org, where you can apply to write your own story in one of our books. You can also download our 60 Ideas for Self-Care on the resources page. I can't wait to hear from you. Until next time, you are not alone, you are worthy, and you are enough.